Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've done a video message to you, and but takes a while to kind of organize my thoughts about all that's happening in the world. So I just want to share where I've been and what I'm thinking, and let you ponder on what I'm pondering on, perhaps. Post election and inauguration and all that's happened, including the storming of our Capitol. And so I'm going to begin by saying, by sharing what I've been thinking, which is the nature of chaos and power, and that we're obviously living in very chaotic times. But, what is chaos? Chaos has fascinated me for a very long time because I see it erupting in people's lives individually, and to some extent, illness is a chaotic experience, and there's divine chaos and there's earthly chaos, but it's kind of a creative principle. Chaos comes and erupts, and then it brings change, but what causes it, and what's the result of it, and what's its intent? And so I'm going to enter through that door. Chaos is a change agent, and if there's one thing that makes us nervous, it's change. And but what changes? What's the intent behind it? I mean, what's its target? And so the fundamental ingredient in your life, in the human experience, in life itself, is power. Power's that elusive agent that we're always working with. In every decision you make, you are negotiating power. In everything you wear, you're negotiating power. When you go shopping, you think, should I buy this or shouldn't I? But what you're really calculating is, would this empower me or would it not? Whether you're buying a sweater or a house or a car or, even food, you think, is this going to empower my body or not? So power's the ingredient. When you're in a conversation, you think, should I say this or shouldn't I? Because will it empower me or will it not? So power's always the ingredient that you are thinking about. Even in your basic business deals, whatever it is, there's always the power calculation, even down to, is this the word I should use or not? Or what do they mean by that? And however it is, when people will say to me that I just felt so drained, they're giving me a power calculation. And the way I evaluate illness is when someone says, I just feel so, how do you feel? But no matter how someone describes it, de-energized, exhausted, all of these are power calculations. And then the journey of analyzing this is figuring out how they've distributed their power, what their narratives are that either empower them or disempower them. So the word that obviously I want you to focus on is power as well as chaos. As we proceed in this conversation, that chaos is the ingredient that redistributes power, whether it's in your personal life, whether we look in your business life, your finances, or whether I expand that to the collective of what we are looking at in our world today. And so we could say that power is getting redistributed within the whole global village, and it's very chaotic. Now, I always use the metaphor that we're living in a building, either individually or collectively, and that depending on the floor that you are in a building determines the view of what you're looking at. So if you're in the first floor of your life, the first floor of your building, that's the floor where you see the least clearly. That's the floor where you are are where it's ground level, and that's the floor where you will see the riot. You'll hear it, but you'll get the worst view of it because you won't know what's happening. That's the floor when you're on the first floor where you'll scream, "What's going on?" because you can't see anything, but you'll experience it the most. That's the paradox of it, isn't it? When you're on the first floor is where you'll actually hear and you'll see things being thrown and you'll hear all the screaming, and yet it's the place where you have the least clarity about what's actually going on, even though you'll come back and you'll say, "Oh my God, I was there and they were screaming and people were yelling and they were storming the Capitol, or they were doing this, they were doing that, and blah, 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 blah." You'll have an experience of it. But will you have seen clearly the whole picture of what was going on? And the answer is no. You'll have an experience of it. So you have to get to a different floor to get the higher. That's why generals in an army are on the high floor and the infantry is on the first. They have to have the overall view. I have to get you up on a higher floor. When I'm working with an individual, I often have to think, how high a floor are they capable of going in their own building? In their own building, how high capable are you of going up the elevator in your own floor, to get a perspective? Because, as you get to the second floor in your building, you see a little bit more, but you're still essentially attached to that first floor experiential. I get you to the third floor. At that, you're going to calm down a little bit and you're going to have conversations with people, but you're still focused on the physical events of the power that's going on. Who has it? Who said what? Where are they? Whether you're dealing with the the things that happened in your personal life, you're still trying to name the people, the events, the day, the time. You're still into the physical calculations of power. And you're still feeling them in your body. So there's still a direct visceral effect of whether you're dealing with a personal event of being robbed or someone said something to you, relationship. You're still doing the calculations of how an event in your life affected you personally, where it is in your body. That person gives me a headache, they're a pain in the rear end, they're da-da-da-da-da. You're doing these calculations. At some point in your building, as I get you up, I have to stop and say, okay, to proceed further, I need to see if you're capable of detaching a little bit from what happened to you so that you could begin to see it more symbolically. I want you to see the energetic components of what happened to you physically. I'm not saying they didn't happen, but are you capable of expanding your perception into, here's the operative word, a more impersonal, archetypal, symbolic view? So both are true simultaneously. One doesn't erase the other. It's just a larger point of view. Now, for a lot of people, making that transition is very threatening because it sounds as if they may lose their capacity to hold the position that what happened to them and their wounds might get eclipsed, that their personal feelings might be thrown into the trunk because the car's going to go on without them, as if their personal feelings won't be somehow or other acknowledged, their wounds won't be acknowledged, and that's not at all. The larger perspective is a way of approaching your wounds within a greater viewpoint. Sometimes a person can make this transition, and sometimes they can't. Sometimes it's more important for them to hold on to their personal experience within the whole than to say, okay, let me see how the whole looks And then I'll go back to my personal experience. So as you go up the floor and you start to higher altitudes in yourself, and you begin to see, I'm not the only one who's ever had this experience. So it's not just my experience. I'm not the only one. Human beings have had experiences like anger, like going through transitions in society, like going through the redistribution of who has the power and who has the force. Many, many times. This is interesting. How do they handle it? What does it mean? And now it's our turn to go through that. And so how should we? Now we talk in terms of we. On a lower level, it's all about I. But as we get up to the higher and we see that there's a whole vast humanity out there, we have to change our language. And we start talking about we. And a lot of people don't want to change the language. They want to stay in the I and in the wound. If you stay in the wound, that's where you're going to stay. You're going to stay in your wound. And all the decisions you make during a time of chaos are going to stay in the chaotic. They're going to stay there. And you're going to be chaos will speak to you, and it will generate chaotic thoughts in you, and it will generate very fearful ones, because this is where you're going to be coming from. And so it makes sense, if you understand what I'm saying, that people will be attracted to those who feed off of chaos, who generate spin from chaos, who make up incredible stories from things like, I heard John F. Kennedy Jr. is still alive, and all kinds of outrageous stories. But when you are in a sea of chaos, so is your thinking. So is your thinking. Hitler thrived on this chaos. In times of chaos, it's when people are most vulnerable to chaotic thought forms, to distortions of truth, to, I bet this could be possible, this could be possible. Beams could be coming in from another planet that are starting fires on the planet. All kinds of things, because you're in chaos, and chaos generates profound fear. And that fear eclipses common sense and your own stability. But as you get up higher and you decide, wait a minute here, I need some fresh air. I need to see clearly. And you go up the floors in your own building to get what is going on here. What is going on here? And you start asking to know bigger than what's going on in your own life. You start asking bigger questions, not just understand what's going on in your life, but to understand what's going on in life. What is this change about? Not just how it's changing my life, but how it's changing life. And then you understand there is a redistribution of this understanding of power and creation all over the human experience. And not just the human experience, but the experience of how we engage with the whole bio-spiritual-ecological system, the power of the animal kingdom, the power of the ecological kingdom, the power of the galactic kingdom, how we understand consciousness and life itself, that we are getting cracked in half because our understanding of how life worked has been so small, has been so guarded because we've been so frightened. We've been so tiny. We've cut and pasted and divided and decided these people, this type of person can have power, but this type of person can't. And animals don't have any consciousness, and nature doesn't have any consciousness. So we can do what we want here, and we can do what we want here. And only people with that kind of shade of skin can have power, and these people can't, and da-da-da-da. And this kind of thinking is getting dissolved. That these nations can have power, but those nations can't, and da-da-da, all divided by invisible lines called the boundaries of nations. And up here, in the higher altitudes, in the quietness of your own soul, if you let go of all that, and you said, what's actually going on? If you had touched into your connection to the holy cosmos and to what's happening in yourself, in your bio-spiritual-ecological system, you'd realize you've already been told you have to become whole. In order for your body to thrive, your body, never mind any theology, but in order for your health to thrive, you have to become whole. It's as simple as that. Whether you're atheist, agnostic, druid, who cares what you are? But in order for you just to thrive, you have to become whole. Being a splintered physical human being is going to hurt you. So splintered thinking, a splintered philosophy, that's going to take you down. So you can return down to your first floor and step into the world. And if you're splintered, step into the chaotic side, because the love of power in that kind of world is where you belong, splintered. And that will continue to splinter you, rage with chaos, scare you, activate your fears, and that will feel normal to you. Even though you don't like that normal, somehow you'll relate to it. Or you can get up higher and think, in order for me to thrive, to be whole, I have to think whole. I have to act whole. And I have to transition from the love of power to the power of love, to the power of a different kind of way of acting and seeing the world. When someone loves power, their calculations are all about how to disempower others. The idea of empowering people is terrifying because the calculations are there's not enough. There's not enough. I have to have more than others. When you understand the power of love, not nonsense, schmaltzy, Hallmark love, I'm talking about an impersonal life force. When you understand that, there's no such thing as shortage. There's no such thing as not enough. That's the miraculous aspect of this. There's just no such thing. This is the cosmic voltage. It says there's no such thing. There's no such thing as not enough sun. It's solar, S-O-U-L-A-R and S-O-L-A-R. This is that kind of power. There's just no such thing as the shortage of kindness. There's no such thing as the shortage of compassion, of kindness, and what that does, and its capacity to transform the world we're living in. That's the calling of our time, that each of us needs to make the profound choice. It's the courageous choice to get that the love of power is the destructive force, and to choose the power of love. And how complicated that choice is. It is. How complex it is. But what it means is that in small and in large ways, we have to learn how. We have to learn how to empower other people, how to empower them, which is a whole new way of thinking and a whole new way of living and a whole new way of challenging our fears and a whole new way of being in the world and a whole new way of speaking, a whole new way of discovering how powerful you are. And that indeed, you'll learn that the lower intuitive wiring in you is in fact completely aimed at your survival, but your higher intuitive senses activate when you direct them to support the survival of others. I'm so devoted to this that my next reflections course, and believe me, this is not an advertisement of it, this is promotion of a truth, that this is deeply where I believe we need to go, that's the message of this time. So I'm going to offer instruction on how to move from the love of power to the power of love. I think it's the most courageous choice we can make. And because I do think it's such a complex journey, such a courageous journey, I'm going to lead you on that. And that's going to be my next class. So look for it. I'm going to be ready to teach it in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, stay healthy and keep yourself in grace. Say a prayer every day. Stay close to the heavens. Even if that prayer is every day, hover over me, God. Keep me in grace. Keep me in grace. So, blessings to all of you. See you soon.